Hi, this is Ed Cohen, your broadcast host on Global TV Talk Show. And welcome to the Global TV Network. We began this in mid-March, like so many other people have done, beginning to reinvent. And we've developed a network of programs that will be put into a resource library, free access, free download, 24/7 worldwide. We are advertiser supported. And so therefore, we give it away free. We want everybody to join us. If not today, then 6, 7, 8, 10 months from now. Our very special guest today is based in the New Orleans area. Melinda Stallings is a renowned author. Her latest is Power of Positive Conflict Resolution. And let's say a very quick hi.
Good morning
To Melinda. Thank you. Thank you for being there. So very quickly, how is your help campaign going to assist the families in Lake Charles area?
Oh, Ed, thanks for asking. There's still a lot of rebuilding to be done, but they are so grateful, and the supplies that were generated, and I had people from the talk show contribute that were listeners. So thank you so much for that platform to do that. Call out Carlton Hoskins, he was a contributor, and some of the others. And it's going to be a slow rebuild process. It's virtually wiped out down there. And Ed, I'm chagrined to tell you that we have another depression just skirting the coast right now, dumping rain on us and the Lake Charles area, and it's going to come back up through Louisiana again. So the fun never ends, Ed.
So I'm in favor of organizing a grassroots campaign or a waterlog campaign to build a pipeline from the southeast, from the Gulf Coast area to California, and just reverse engineer all that water out of there. And we need it to put out fires, never mind irrigate the deserts.
Yeah, that would be wonderful if we could do that, wouldn't it, Ed?
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, and we'd love to give you some too, I can promise you.
I'll drink it. So let's say hello to Christy Castles. Welcome. Introduce yourself briefly.
Hi, thank you. My name is Christy Castles. I'm an HR consultant, and I'd like to consider myself your strategic HR business partner. I like to lead businesses forward with thinking strategically about human capital.
Great. And so you're active with the New Orleans Shurim?
Baton Rouge Shurim, yeah.
Okay, great. And do you have a title there or a position of power?
I am just volunteering at the moment.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, great. And let's welcome Mark Colo from Southern California.
Hi, Ed. It's always good to be on your show.
Thank you.
I enjoy them a great deal. My day job is I'm Vice President Sales and Marketing for a group called Shipman Relocation. They're the largest agent for United Van Lines and Mayflower Van Lines west of Mississippi. I also have a foundation that I operate. We just recently rebranded the name. It was Find Cures, and we would fund research for cures for neurological diseases. Now it's called Find Neuro Help, and it's more focused to the general public to help individuals that can't find help through their regular healthcare services. We provide somewhat of an AFLAC program, but we do it at no premium, so it's free of cost to the individual. So we help them with services that they can't get through their normal channels. And then I wrote a book called Peace with Parkinson's. It's called Arresting Tremor, Not an Earthquake. You'll notice when I speak, I shake a little bit. That's the residual of the Parkinson's. But so I'm quite busy and going in a lot of different areas.
Well, I really appreciate you and fully support your foundation. And we have a visitor, Bobby. Hello. Bobby, you're welcome to introduce yourself.
Oh, hello. My name is Bobby Witt, and I'm a human resource professional in the Kansas City area. The passion for people and solving problems.
Well, we welcome you to Global TV. I want to introduce you to Melinda Stallings and Christy Castles.
Hey, Bobby.
Hey,
Hi,
Nice to-
Bobby. Yeah, we're glad you could join us.
absolutely, absolutely.
Great. And I see we have Roberto Chang. Hello, Roberto, my friend. Put on your sound. There you go.
How you doing, Ed? Thank
Yeah,
you for
just
inviting
great.
me to this forum.
Yeah, so you're in Houston, correct?
That's correct. Very wet and rainy season right now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So,
I know Louisiana will share the same.
Yeah.
yeah. So Roberto and I met, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. When he was involved in another company. Tell us what your position of responsibility is today.
A little bit of my background, I started on the supply side on the relocation industry. I used to work for a company to sell insurance products. Now I'm on the other side of the coin. I'm working with an international company opening a factory in Mexico right now. And so I'm on my function as a regional administrator. Is one of my job is to two of my jobs are to find local hires in Mexico, and also the more appropriate forum, the challenge of bringing employees from China to Mexico to work at the factory as well.
Well, that's an interesting perspective. So, our program today, as you noticed, is about the positive conflict resolution. And of course, that's needed in many areas. And the author of the book is Melinda Stallings. So, Melinda, let's go to you. Tell us about your book, how you came up with that title.
Well, actually, Ed, the book started as a result of my delivering seminars, and people would continually ask me, "Do you have a book?" Because I've learned more in 3 hours than I ever possibly knew that I could do with conflict, moving it to positive change. And I would always say, "Well, no, I don't." So one day I said, "Okay, that's it. I've got to write the book." That and an instance that occurred with my mother upon her death, coming to me in a dream and telling me, "Honey, it doesn't have to be hard." And realizing then as a result of that, that we make things hard, which is why we avoid conflict, which is why we don't take our authentic self into situations and state what we need and what we don't need in a collaborative manner, not in a forceful, wrong manner. So that's kind of the background of how that all came about. And I like to kind of define conflict for people. First of all, conflict doesn't necessarily mean fisticuffs or some kind of physical altercation. We all experience conflict every day because there's one constant that's always present with conflict, and that is change. And we all have change every day. Even internally, we think, oh, should I do that or should I not do that? Should I say that or should I not say that? So learning how to positively move through decision making and developing a practice that you can do that rather quickly without having to agonize over it or put yourself on the hamster wheel was the real reason behind the book.
Yeah, and so how are sales? Are you getting anything out of it?
Sales are great. And there's really been a lot of interest. I just publicly launched the book. Well, with your broadcast, and then a couple of days before I launched the book and gave away all of the proceeds from the launch to the Help Fund for the hurricane victims of Laura. And I'm beginning to get some traction from that because people are realizing that conflict is showing up in so many aspects of their life, personally, professionally. And the beautiful part of the book is while it was written for managers and leaders and employees within organizations, it applies to your personal life as well.
I bet. So do a deep dive, if you will, on chapter 2 or chapter 3,
Okay.
and let's get behind the curtain.
Okay, and I'm really interested in hearing how this is going to impact some of our other panel members, what they see within their fields that this can apply to. So I'll welcome their comments after that.
Goodness.
But O is for open objectivity and ownership. And so a lot of times what people do is they become emotionally attached to whatever the conflict is that's going on. And they've got their I want to win part in it, simply because you want things to be done your way, or you don't want to change the ways that you've been doing things. But when we can step back and take a look at how the entire situation could be viewed, I like to say, like you're a bird perched up on a shoulder or overhead, looking down and really looking at the dynamics of any situation, even if it's personal. If you're really thinking about how you've always done things and you're going to have to change things, that's a conflict. And being objective about, maybe this is a little bit scary for me, but I know it's going to be an opportunity for me to grow and to discover something else about myself and to have a positive impact moving forward. And so that objectivity goes a long way in helping to take out the emotional sting of whatever kind of actions people might take as a result of taking a look at it. The other thing that O stands for is ownership, because a lot of times we're a part of a conflict because of something that we've done, but our pride gets in the way, and it's challenging for a lot of people to say, I'm sorry, or perhaps I made a mistake. But what we know is that the three things that people want most out of life is love, trust, and respect. And that simple act of saying, perhaps I made a mistake, or I'm sorry I flew off the handle, I was having a morning, everything is kind of crazy right now. And let's really talk about what it is that you wanted to discuss. And I promise that I'll come into it with open ears. Man, you want to talk about your trust and respect quotient skyrocketing? Because people are like, oh, okay, well, they are open to listening, and they are open to taking their part in what it is. Not only what you have done, but also what you have failed to do. Sometimes we neglect to reach back out, or we leave people in silence for a while, or we just didn't do what they asked us to do. So those become really critical components of what's going to move the conflict to the next level of success strategies, which is 3. But I'm certainly open to thoughts, with your permission, Ed, of what people think about ownership and objectivity in their roles that they've worked in and what they've observed within the dynamics of an organization.
Let's go to Christy. Please comment.
Absolutely. I mean, when I go into an organization, what I've found is that a lot of people are doing things the way they've done it for sometimes 20 years. And it's hard for them to think about changing the way they've done it. And that's the hardest part, is getting them past the steps that they've taken and thinking about doing things in a different way. Once they're agreeing to maybe move to a different enterprise solution that can help them manage whatever process it is that they're doing in a better way, it's a long process to get them transitioned from one to the other. But in the end, hopefully, we can cut down their time of doing whatever process from 2 days to 4 hours. And it takes a lot of work to get there. It's a lot of work to change. And so sometimes it's just that ownership of being comfortable with what they've been doing and moving from the comfort of this way to doing something a little bit different. So me being kind of a disruptor, it takes showing them, in a demo, how it could be done differently, getting them excited about this possibility of, movement to another solution, and then, getting them on board with possibly a new way of doing things. And sometimes they're not. Sometimes they are not willing to make the move. And that's just in that particular solution. I mean, we're talking, we could be talking about bringing on a new type of salesperson or anything like that. But yeah, you have to get them on board with the decision to move before you can actually make the change.
Well, thank you. Now, this is a great start to today's program on the power of positive conflict resolution. And we're going to go back to Melinda for more. But we just want to take a quick break. Paul, when you're ready, let's show our advertisers. It'll just take less than a minute, and we'll be right back. So, Melinda, back to you. Tell us about where you're going in your next version of the book.
Well, the next version, it started out also, my idea was kind of like a chicken soup for the soul kind of series. And so the next book will most likely be either solely dedicated to communication. Of course, that comes into play with courageous conversations in the current book. But communication, change, teams, strategy, succession planning, I have in mind a particular series. But I think that's going to be the next natural iteration. I'm finding that there is a lot of discovery around communication. I'm always marveling at that because it's the thing we do most in our life, and yet we least understand how to effectively communicate with one another. So taking the positive approach through the actual communication process, I think is going to be the next thing. But currently, I want to piggyback on what Christy said about going into success and finding solutions, because that is the third chapter, the success strategies and solutions. And people do have to be willing to move into that. But she also said we have to find ways to compel them to want to do that. We are creatures of habit. And, we would rather just stay where we know everything is nice and comfortable, unless we're a risk taker, and some personalities are like that, then move into something that is totally unknown. And I think it's important that we do provide them reasons why things change or why things must change. And Ed, you talked in your promo about this program today about the black swan and the black swan concept, and we're living it, right? I mean, here's a compelling reason to change, because everything has changed, and your success strategy is not going to entail what you've done in the past. It's going to entail thinking outside of the box, coming up with solutions that are going to work for everyone, starting individually, of course, but then blanketing out my team, my department, my organization, and society at large.
So the black swan thing is an insurance company approach to disaster and unexpected consequences. So we have the pandemic, of course, the virus, and the unknowns connected with all of that and all the craziness all around. And the impact all of that has had on our individual lives personally. And of course, it's all compounded by a heavy duty impact on the economy, on most portions of the economy. Not all, but most.
Yeah.
And then we have the weather, crazy, nuts weather, fires, and the disaster for the insurance companies, who are going to certainly jack up their rates on all of us who are not impacted. So, I mean, all of this is long-term, and it's nuts. So let's go to Bobby. Bobby, I invite you, if you wish, to make a comment about what Christy and Melinda have been talking about and how you view this from your role in the Kansas City Shurim.
I think I would say that the thing that resonated with me most as I was listening to both of them, and the thing I've struggled with mostly as a HR leader, is getting the senior management folks to trust you, trust what you're saying, to trust the process. Chrissy said something about, when you've always done what when you always do what you've always done, you get the same results. And folks are so comfortable in that place there. So building and developing trust is something that takes a long time with some leaders. It can happen, but it's got to be a lot of repetitive conversations, a lot of showing up when you say you're going to show up, a lot of saying what you doing what you say you're going to do.
So a lot of people are not trained in conflict resolution, and they revert to themselves, their internal, right? So some people are, let's call it self-deprecatory, and others are showboats, like me.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, or they just lay back, or others are sort of in between. So people's communication styles change,
Yeah.
or they're threatened, and then they react differently, and
Exactly.
then that could exacerbate the conflict, right, Melinda?
Exactly. So personality, which we started off with our first show talk, I mean, that has everything to do with it. And you summarize that so nicely, Ed. Am I an extrovert? Am I an introvert? Do I base my decisions on thinking and facts, or do I base my decisions on gut feeling? And especially when we're living in this heightened sense of anxiety, I don't think people really have an opportunity to reach the full relaxation potential right now. There's such a sense of uncertainty that, so the other day I was reading a Wall Street Journal article, and it said that dentists are experiencing out the roof business, and they're finding a 95% increase in tooth fractures. Do you know what that's a result of?
No.
We're all walking around grinding our teeth. We're stressed. Our shoulders are up around our ears by the time the evening comes, and we're having to get our shoulders down. And it's because we're in this heightened sense of uncertainty. And then even if we knew that a person was a certain way, if we're just having a bad day or we're unsure of something, them talking to us in the way that they normally talk, but it's not the way that we prefer to be talked to, that can just spark something at the drop of a hat, right? So we've got to be aware that people are different. And that's where, being open and being objective becomes so critical, especially now when we're not sure what's going on. And to Bobby's point, now more than ever, it is critical to listen to the frontline employees who are really interacting with clients and customers and see what's happening, to get a finger on the pulse of how we can best satisfy their needs and how we can implement practices. This is brand new territory. It's not the same. We cannot conduct business the way we used to. It is definitely extreme differences, and the paradigm has shifted.
So I want to bring up a point here. We'll get right back to you.
Yeah,
that another black swan angle is social issues and how they've become political issues and cultural issues. So Roberto, I welcome you to the show, of course, but Roberto, you must have some keen insight about the social political issues, particularly with the idea of establishing a business in Mexico, further complicated by bringing in people from China into that mix when there's so many people already looking for work in Mexico.
Well, and obviously every countries have their regulations to protect their own national market, and that's the situation we find more structure in Mexico. And in the US is more about market driven. But yes, they are socio-economical aspects of the two markets. And to the point of what Melinda was saying, that there are conflicts issues as well, and people getting used to the ways they've always been working, and these are new territory for them as well. So there are many aspects. There are some funny parts too, if I can mention. As my experience relocation, I know how important is the boarding part of the employee, and trying to hear the employee, as you said, at the front end of the business, hearing what they're looking for. One of the issues I encountered, it may be funny, but my Chinese employees will not come if they don't have Chinese food. So those are one of the social economic issues I find. It's no kidding. I have a couple of engineers come to Mexico and they won't touch any Mexican food. They just want rice and Chinese food, nothing else. It's mind-boggling. Just for my, my background, I feel more that I'm a Latino, so I don't understand that mentality. So I have to learn too how to deal with those conflicts. And since I have also a little bit of a sales background, you have to deal with those issues in the sense of how to bring the two parts together to solve those problems.
What kind of a plant are you developing there?
Is supplier for automotive parts.
Yeah, so Mexico's huge in that.
Yes, part of NAFTA. Well,
right.
USMCA now.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's go to Mark Colo. Mark, as we've heard already, is in the relocation and logistics business, but he also has a specialty connected with his foundation that works with doctors and research scientists. Mark, why don't you just go a little deeper on that?
Yeah, and I'll jump into that just a second. I just want to say I've really enjoyed the comments so far. I mean, everyone has some great insights, especially the one about change. I lived in Northern Ireland in the late 70s when the hunger strikes were taking place.
Wow.
It was a pretty explosive place to be at that time. But the Irish used to say, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. And in the morning, you'd see every kind of weather there was. And so that was kind of interesting to see that. So to me, the only constant is change. And we have to learn to embrace it. I mean, that's important. But in terms of my moving with laboratories, our group, Chipman Relocation, as one of the larger agents for United Van Lines, has gotten into moving laboratories and research scientists in a big deal, in a great way over the last 4 or 5 years. I've probably moved about 85 research scientists who are going to be the ones that are going to find the cures. The vaccine for COVID, they're going to find cures for cancer. They're going to find cures for these nasty chronological illnesses that people get. I'm just excited about what these scientists are doing. And they move their biospecimens, which is their life's work, in a unit which is called a reefer, or it's just basically, it's a specialized trailer that moves biospecimens in a controlled temperature manner. So it's set up in such a way that there's tertiary backups. So if the one generator goes out and the temperature drops by more than 3 degrees, an alarm goes off, driver pulls over, he flips a second switch and starts a second generator. They have tertiary and they have four-part backups so that trailer never loses temperature and that the specimens arrive in good shape. So that's been a fun niche for me to do for the last 5 years. And I've moved some amazing people. If there was more time, I'd tell you about some of these people, but they're just, suffice it to say, they're remarkable individuals that have found some remarkable technology and science to find cures for these issues and these diseases.
Mark, we're going to make more time for you. Let's go back to Melinda and go into another chapter now. You've heard some diversity of opinion and situation here. So let's talk about situational conflict resolution.
I think that one of the other chapters, and probably one of the most important ones, is talk. Because a lot of times we will tell the person what we're going to say. I know what I'll say to them. It's never quite nice what it is that we're going to say to them, right? Because we feel like we've been wronged. But when you put those first steps together, the POS and the I, which is imaging, then you can have an opportunity to stand in front of a mirror and rehearse the positive conversation that you're going to have with them. I alluded to an apology earlier. Stand in front of the mirror and say, see yourself apologizing. These things seem like they are maybe somewhat a little far-fetched, but every great athlete, every business leader, A, they've had a coach, and B, they know the power of imaging and practice. Any great performer, they don't just get up on stage and sing a song. They practice that over and over and over. So
what is imaging?
So imaging is having in your mind not what you're coming from the place. So first you have to know what your success is. What does success look like? You want to move the conversation, or you want to get this action as a result of having that conversation with the person. So you come from that place. What are the steps that you take? And then you're there, and then you image yourself. You image yourself getting in your car, driving to work that day, not letting anything have a negative impact on you. Getting out of the car, smiling at people as you go in, going into your office. Know that you have this conversation coming up, walking into the room. You image everything in detail as if it has already happened. You make it so, right? And it becomes a very vital part of.
That's interesting, and I think that is so many people that are doing jobs.
Thank you. Of that success. So imaging, I'll give you a very concrete example. Michael Phelps, arguably the greatest swimmer, Olympic medalist, right? He said that he never stopped swimming. If he was sitting on a park bench, he was imaging his arms cutting through the water. He could feel, and it's not just seeing, it's also feeling. He could feel his chest expanding and contracting, his legs hitting the water, and he would feel himself reach to that wall, feel himself push down and come up, break through the water, and turn around and look at the scoreboard and see first place. Never second, never third, and most often breaking his own record. But we get, to everyone's point earlier, we just get so complacent, and it's like, okay, this is good enough. And so we lose that opportunity to really transform our own lives, and in the process, transform other people's lives.
So a very long time ago, there was a book that I read when I was in a position very, very different than I am today. I was hurting. But anyway, I was given this book. I forget who gave it to me. It's called The Magic of Believing. All right. And it's not religious at all. Oh, it could be, but the intent was not religious. It was about believing in self-imaging and believing about how you want to look, or how you want to walk, or how you want to sing, or make a sale. Way before it ever happens, what would it be like to get that new job? What position do I have to behave now if I want to succeed in that position later?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I think that's just so important. You act as if, right?
Right.
So, because we've all had the situation where we've said, okay, I'll go ask, but I know it's going to happen. And then you go in, and what happens? Well, exactly what you said was going to happen, because you manifested that. Or you can say, okay, look, I'm going into this thing. It's kind of like the last time. Maybe I'm dealing with this person. Maybe I haven't had the greatest relationship with this person before. What am I going to do differently? And then that's when you put your success strategy together and you image it and you walk in. I'm not saying it's 100% fail-proof, but I am saying you're going to be a lot closer than going in when you're saying, okay, I know what's going to happen. And to Bobby's point, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That's Einstein's definition of insanity, right? And yet people do it all the time.
So let's go back to Roberto. So Roberto and I met when he was involved in a very large insurance operation, and with specialty clients. And so Roberto, now you're on the other side in corporate management and in an international relations kind of role. How did you use imaging? Can you think back? How did you train yourself to be ready for the success that you're having today?
I think most of the time I tend to focus on the goal, and then I work around that and how to achieve that based on my constraints, if I can say that. What is not working, what is working. If I cannot go this way, maybe I can go the other way. If I cannot do it myself, try to convince the other stakeholders if they can support me. If not, then I know I cannot go that way. I'm not going to win all 10 battles at this all the time, but I'll be happy with 7 or 8.
I love that.
Hey, okay, Christy, you're on. How are you imaging to go to your next new now?
Roberto and I are on the same page, but I have a name for it. The last large enterprise organization I was in, I moved turnover from 47% down to 2% over the course of a few years. And thank you. And that we counted it. I think it was around 147 different projects that we worked on. And we titled those projects Janus projects. And that is because we knew the current situation, but we were focused on the goal. So we kept the goal in mind of decreasing turnover, increasing our employee morale, and improving our customer experience all at the same time. And that's exactly what we did.
So you've, I don't know, I'm stretching it, Melinda, but you had a conflict between then and now, and the future. You're in the middle of it. So, right. Mark, you're dealing with that now with your golf tournament, right?
Yeah, we are. And all this topic just goes into all of our lives in such a personal way. I've been thinking this morning a little bit about habits in general, and I'll get back to my golf tournament here in a second, Ed, but just habits. I mean, I've been reading a book called Atomic Habits, and it talks about how you make these little tiny habits that you do them every day. You get to where, you create an image of what you want to be, and you do these habits. There's like 4 steps to it. And the first one is cue. The second one is crave. Third one is response. And the fourth one is reward. If you can build those things into your habits, they'll be much easier to attain. But overall, you need to look at what you want to be. And then you put a system in place to get there. So it's just fascinating. Some of these authors and some of these topics. Love your topic, Melinda. I think it's a great space. Right. Great need for it. And I got a story. Ed won't give me the time. I'm sure I don't have the time to share, but I would tell you a story about how I had a run-in with one of my employers. And I wrote a chapter about it in my book. It's called The Layer of Pride. And it's all about how we develop these opinions and these ideas that someone's in the wrong and we're in the right. And because of our pride, neither one steps down, and they end up going head to head. And typically the one that wins is the one with the largest network. And that's kind of what happened in this situation. So it was a hard learning experience.
Interesting. I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think that's very much part of the ownership part. Don't let your pride get in the way, right?
Oh, big. And you don't see it, it's you made that example about having a high viewpoint and looking down below you. That's my biggest weakness when I took some of these personality tests, is I'm not able to go high into the air and look and just survey my surroundings below. So when you can do that from an emotional intelligence standpoint, you're much further ahead of the game than most others. So.
Okay, Mark, I want you to take more time. Go deeper.
Oh.
Please do.
Okay, Ed's never heard this story.
I know, this is cool.
But I think you'll enjoy it if I can tell it as well as I hope to. I worked for a moving company. We'll call them ABC Company. And the owner, there was 2 owners, 2 brothers, and the 2 brothers could never see eye to eye. So one of the brothers hired an attorney and split the company down the middle. The smarter businessman was the one that took all the storage business for the company. Because storage just sits there and you get your check every month. I mean, it's an easy commodity to manage, but the moving part in our industry is so hard to handle. And our owner, he named the company ABC Relocation. And I said to him one day, I said, "Hey, Bill," I said, "why do you call it ABC Relocation?" He says, "Well, because we're a relocation company." And I said, "Well, no, we're really not. We're a moving and storage logistics company. We're not a relocation company." Nice. So I said, "That's confusing to some customers." I said, "Why don't we get into that niche?" And he said to me, he said, well, because we can barely do the moving, let alone do the relocation piece of it. I said, Bill, if you can do the moving part of it and do it well, this other stuff's a piece of cake because you're just handing off third-party, services and managing them. So he didn't see it that way. And so I did, as time went on, the morale in the company went down. So I said to myself, I got to get out of here. I've got to get another company to work for. So I started a relocation management company because they were stealing all my moves over time. They were just cherry picking all my moves. Becoming that single point of contact that did everything for the client because the client didn't have time because their resources were getting diminished and they were downsizing their HR departments. So this was kind of a blocking mechanism, a way for me to exit that business and that company. And as time went on, the owner of that business, the other brother that took over the moving part, he started up a relocation management company with his partner in the company that nobody liked. So the morale in the building was just gone. And no downward communication, no upward communication. So it was all side to side at the water coolers. And just tragic to even walk into that building. I just couldn't go into that building. It just, it was depressing. So I had started my relocation management company, which is called Trans Safari. You're going on a journey, and Safari, it's a jungle out there, and we're your guides. We had CSRs that were guides rather than customer service reps. So I was having fun. I was living large, and my owner got wind of it, and he said, "Mark, I want you to cease and desist from that company." I says, "Why?" He says, "You might jeopardize my franchise with the van line." And I said, "Bill," I said, "how am I going to jeopardize your franchise with the van line any more than you are, and you're the owner of the franchise?" So it was kind of like the pot calling the kettle black. And so I was just infuriated, that he would call me out like that. But the bottom line was he had the larger network than I did. And so in the end, he called me in for a sales meeting, which we never had sales meetings because his right-hand man, who he started the relo company with, his name was Billy. He would not allow sales meetings because the salesman would tell him what he's doing wrong. He had the title of vice president of sales, but they tell him everything he's doing wrong, so he wouldn't allow sales meetings. And we couldn't even go have lunch down on the corner and have a sales meeting for fear that he'd fire us. So that was the environment that I worked in. And to make a long story short, he finally terminated me when he called that sales meeting because I wouldn't change my course. And I walked out the front door from making a pretty healthy six-figure income to making nothing going out the front door. I didn't really think it through that well. I wish I had it to think over again. Well, I wish I'd had your book, Melinda, and then I could have used it.
Best gift that was ever handed to you.
I thought it was a great resource at the time. So I walked out the door, and then about a week later, I saw a stranger at my curb, and he was giving me a summons paper for a lawsuit, and he was trying to sue me for $500,000. So that's that story. And I found out from my employment attorney that about 1 out of every 10 employers take any action after separating or firing an employee. So this individual was in that 10% of I'm going to use you as my whipping boy, and I'm going to use you as an example. So very painful chapter in my life, but all the while I felt I'm doing the right thing. I'm speaking up for these employees that won't say anything because they're for fear of getting terminated. That's a little bit about that experience, but I didn't mean to go off so much on that, but it's when I get involved,
that's powerful.
It's pretty significant for me. So,
Mark, you're a gem, and we're live worldwide, and the whole world is watching and listening to you.
Thank you.
So thank you. So Melinda, this is conflict resolution or conflict recognition, and then taking steps to resolve. So talk to us a little bit about your insight on the mental anguish that Mark went through and I've gone through in the past. I'm sure others have too.
And me. I mean, that's the thing. We're all going through this together apart, right? There's not one of us that hasn't experienced something that has created an internal conflict within us. And we're thinking, what do I do? Do I say something? Do I not say something? Do I stand up for these people? Do I not stand up for these people? And I think that's where the determinants of integrity, your own authenticity, whether, what's your internal makeup. There are some people that would not have had the wherewithal to stand up to that individual like you did, Mark. And I think that those individuals that do, if a door closes for them, there is always a bigger door that opens for them. It's just going to be a matter of time. That's just the way the universe works. I mean, it is, and look at you now, my word. I mean, I'm so intrigued by moving complete laboratories. And by the way, I love Trans Safari. If you don't use it, you should now. But moving complete laboratories and the body of work that's happening, God took your mess and gave you a greater message, because now not only are you moving quote unquote people, you are moving cures and moving solutions for people. So I know that in your mind, as it would be with any of us, we go through, what am I doing? Is this the right thing to do? And we're always asking for guidance, right? It's almost like we're hoping that some voice is going to come booming out of the sky for us. But I like to really tell people, in those instances, and I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I say that we have a knower, and our knower is right here in our gut, right? And our knower knows what it is that we're supposed to do. It really does, yet we override it. How many times has your gut said, do that or don't do that, and you've overridden it, and you're like, oh God, that was a wrong decision, right? So I think that listening to that still small voice, I think that the other thing that you mentioned or someone mentioned was, no, it was Roberto. It was taking a look at which battles are worth the energy and the effort right now. How much energy do I have to expend? Let's increase our chances of winning. Let's use appreciative inquiry. What has worked instead of focusing on what hasn't worked? And how can we move that needle based upon our successes, based upon our network, based upon the buy-in that we're going to get from people? And we come back, though, to how articulate are you in communicating why this would work or why it wouldn't work. Now, in some instances, like with you, Mark, we've got individuals that you could be showing them something that is blue. It's obviously blue, and they're going to tell you, no, it's purple, or it's green, or it's red, because they've already made up their mind. And when they're the boss or the owner, that sometimes can be quite challenging and frustrating. That's where your integrity comes in again. Are you going to succumb, or are you going to be that person who's going to stand in their integrity no matter what the cost is, and know that when you lay your head on your pillow at night, you're going to be able to go to sleep, because it's like, you know what? I did what I felt like was right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, how about Christy? This is a lot to think about, I know. But how is Shurim handling the work from home crisis?
I think they've been great about it. We have had all of our monthly meetings via Zoom, and the last meeting was actually very intriguing because we were able to communicate through video and very collaborative instead of, a typical presentation type of meeting event. So they've been very good, especially back in May, June, even April timeframe. They were having more weekly type of meetings with some of the updates coming out of the Department of Labor and the different changes coming down through the government on the new types of leave and the COVID regulations and the COVID CARES Act that came out. So there was a lot of information that was being given and distributed to the body, which was great.
Good. So, from your own insight, how are it's mostly women who are feeling the brunt of working from home and taking care of the kids and taking care of the house and being super mom, right? That's true, isn't it?
No, I think you're wrong. I think men are feeling it too. I think it's a team effort. My husband was here for a good 8 weeks and we were tag teaming the whole kid deal with us. So yeah.
So you worked it out good.
Yeah, we did.
That would be
nice.
some interesting research.
That's a good story. Yeah. So
Ed, may I pose a question to Mark around that, because
of course,
a lot about diversity and inclusion, and this is coming from a place of the work that you do with the foundation and people with diseases or disabilities, and I have a daughter who is hearing impaired and has worn hearing aids since she was 2. And I'm watching the movements for the mostly visible disabilities that people see. But I think that there's also a great need for people to adapt and connect for individuals who otherwise are quite brilliant, have wherewithal, but they just have some kind of maybe invisible or less noticeable disability. And so what are you all, does your foundation address that? And what are your feelings on that?
Well, we
our perspective.
The very beginning, I'm glad you asked that question, because in the very beginning, our primary focus in our foundation was to educate the public. We want to educate people as to what these diseases are and what impact they have on the body and on the mind and psyche and all those things. So we try to get as much information out there as possible. It's kind of information overload in some ways. So we're trying to step back a little bit and redefine what we are and what we're trying to do. But each one of these neurological diseases, chronic neurological diseases, impacts the body in a little bit different way.
Sure.
I like to say that, mine's one of the creme de la cremes in terms of challenges, because it impacts literally every function of your body. I mean, you might say, well, look at him, he's got Parkinson's. That must be tough, seeing him shake the way he shakes when he talks. But the reality is any amount of stress magnifies what the impact is on the body. And because I already have a tremor, if I try to control the tremor, it gets worse. So that's one of the frustrating things about Parkinson's is that's a fact. So public speaking was hard for me for the longest time. I keep quiet and silent because I didn't want to make a show of myself. But, I'm related to Elvis Presley, so, I got some excuses.
There you go.
On that.
Well, you do a fabulous job with it, I think, if I might be so bold.
Yeah. Thank you, Melinda. My comment to people when they ask about challenges and issues that people have and that are obviously visible is that not all scars are visible. We have scars inside our psyche from life experiences and other things that happen that are hard to shake and hard to get away from, but they're real. And you never know when you're talking to somebody, whether you're talking to somebody that really has a challenge or that has overcome the challenge. And to me, that's the glory I take in it, is that I keep going forward, I keep pressing forward, and I don't allow this to stop me or slow me down. I'm on like a mission. So my next book I'm writing, I'll put a plug in there if you don't mind. My second book is coming out. I'm having it edited right as we speak. It's called The Noble and Great Ones. And there's a reason those words are in that sequence. If you put great before nobility, you might never reach nobility, because you get a big head and you get real. It's like what Michael Phelps. What a great athlete! What a great swimmer! Best swimmer of all time. But what has he done off the course, out of the pool? What has he really done based on his fame and his ability to reach? What has he done from a nobility standpoint? Wow. Maybe a lot more than most would, maybe not as much as some in his situation. So I talk about different athletes and different successful people. And I talk in my book a little bit about maybe could they have done more? Could they have done a little bit more in this area? Babe Ruth was the greatest baseball player to ever pick up a bat, but he spent all this time in the bar. He was always getting drunk. but what a talented athlete he was. So that's what my second book is called, The Noble and Great Ones.
Can't wait to read it.
What's that?
Can't wait to read it.
The subtitles, it's not about proportions. It's what's in the glass that matters most. That's who are we, from the core, and what were we when we were young children, young infants. How did we develop to who we are today? But more importantly, who were we at our roots in our early beginnings? So I talk about the Pan principle in there. There's a Pan in each one of us. And one of my favorite movies was Hook, with Robin Williams, who also got Parkinson's. But it was a great movie because it had a great theme. There's a Pan inside each one of us.
Of course.
You need to go find it.
So Melinda, what is your daughter's name and how's she doing with conquering the hearing issue?
Her name is Jacqueline, and she's fabulous. I mainstreamed her through school. She would wear a device, and her teacher would wear a device that would speak directly into her hearing aids. She did not learn to sign until she was in college and took that as her foreign language. She determined that we were not going to sign. She reads lips. A funny story. One time we were watching an LSU football game when Nick Saban was the coach, and he would use some choice words, but of course, you couldn't hear it. But she looked at me one day and she goes, "Mom, did you see what he just said?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got it," right? But as long as you are facing her, she can react, respond, talk with you in a very articulate manner. But you can stand right behind her and you can talk to her and she cannot hear you. So she needs that visual cue of having the ability to understand what it is that you're saying. Stand in front of her, she can do all of that. Loud noises are not good. It's really interesting what you said, Mark, about the different things that impact the body and the psyche. But she's gone on, she got her bachelor's, she got her master's degree. She's working at UT Health Science Center in San Antonio. She's moving up the ladder. And so I think I made a post last week about, don't tell me what you can't do. Show yourself and show the world what you can do. There's so many people who are just sitting around waiting for things to be handed to them. And I just admire people that have extra abilities, as they're called now, that have overcome so much because they made it happen. And to your point, we all have something inside us that we decide we're either going to overcome or we're going to let it overcome us. And I would venture a guess that everyone sitting in here today and the majority of the people watching the show, they're overcomers. They take positive conflict resolution to the next level. They're like, we're going to positively change. This isn't going to get me stuck. And that's what the greats do. They look for a way to make things positively change. Yeah. Thank you for asking about her, Ed. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I like stories. I like the real life situations.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, I just love your quote here. I'm trying to write it down here. Taking positive conflict resolution to the next level.
Yeah, for a positive change. Because conflict is what? Change. We would have no conflict if somebody or we didn't want to change something. That's the only reason we have conflict is because of change. If we're not trying to change, then everything is status quo. So the more that we can reframe that, it's not conflict, it's change. It's what are we going to do and how are we going to make it better? How are we going to take it to the better? Yeah.
So we need to bring this to a close. Not that I want to, but so let's go around the room here. Our slogan, one of our slogans has been enter as strangers and leave as friends. And Melinda, because of you, I think we've accomplished that here. So thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Well, I'm staging it, but you're the thought leader. And so, okay, Christy, I know you're facing some challenges, but positive conflict is internal as well as external, right? So, what are you going to reinvent yourself to?
I'm taking my challenges one day at a time. And I am looking forward to my next opportunity, being able to make a positive impact on an organization looking to reinvent their culture and develop their culture and their talent in brand new ways.
Thank you. Wish you well. And thank you for being on the show. Roberto, it's a pleasure to see you again, and learned a lot from your participation here. So thank you. So how many people are you going to be hiring?
About 50 persons, Mexican nationals, and I'm going to bring about 10 persons from China at the very beginning for the early part of the endeavor, so things go smoothly. And I have learned a lot today that obviously conflicts are always present. Is how you go ahead and set your mind to, in a positive way, to try to tackle them. I'm usually always on my cocoon, working, just doing my stuff, and it's a very nice fresh air to hear that there are possibilities, there are other angles, that it's not just me thinking about this, that other persons are not close-minded like others, and this group is praying that we are all open-minded, and that gives me a lot of support as well.
Well, we wish you well, and I want to invite you to come back. Bobby, I know this is impromptu. It's not rehearsed, as you could tell. So I welcome you to chat a little bit now about Kansas City Shurim and what initiatives you're taking.
Thank you. Like Christy, I think there's a couple Shurim groups because we border Kansas and Missouri here. So there's one in Johnson County and one in Kansas City, Missouri. Excuse me. And I think they've done a great job and probably communicated more than we had in the past in terms of using social media to get information out, streaming meetings online. Just echo what Christy said about that. So proud to be part of that organization. As far as there's a reason why I kind of tagged onto this here yesterday. This was quite by accident. I ended up connecting this morning. I think this might be something I needed to hear for myself, because I'm struggling in my job search right now, and my ideal situation, I haven't pictured myself, imaged myself in that new company yet. And maybe that's a big part of why I haven't had, the call yet. So I appreciate everything that everybody has said. And Mark, I have a very good friend, two very good friends actually, who are have been tasked with the challenge of having Parkinson's. So I really appreciate you being here, Sarah, and being out, open, public, and doing everything you're doing. It's very much appreciated by those of us that have people that are close to us and experiencing the same thing, sir. So I appreciate
bless you. So I want to encourage Mark and Bobby, Roberto, Christy, everybody to use this chat thing on the bottom here and type in your email or your phone or website so you can make connections after I leave the room here. Okay? And feel free to use this occasion and communicate with each other quickly. So Melinda, when's your next public speaking tour?
I really don't know, Ed. I'm just had an international public speaking in India and Singapore this past Saturday. That was really interesting.
Wow.
Had a great conversation there. Always love to be invited to you, so really appreciate that. I'm not sure what I'm going to manifest how quickly soon, but there's a lot swirling, right? Yeah.
So we have. So I want to invite you all to stay alert. I'll be in communication with you. My email is publisher@globalbusiness.media. Little unusual. It's a Google specialty thing, and it comes right to me. That's publisher@globalbusiness.media. So we're going to be running a couple of, we're doing a lot of broadcasts, but 2 on media training. In other words, how to think about yourself on camera. Here we are on camera, okay? Proper lighting, sitting, what to wear, what not to do. And it's not coming from me, I'm the producer, but the guests know what they're talking about. And I'll be announcing that pretty quick, and you'll all be invited to go. There's no charge, of course. So this can help as like a building block towards getting much more comfortable with public speaking and being in front of strangers. And that, to many people, speaking and being in front of strangers is a conflict, right, Melinda?
Exactly.
Yeah. So
the number one fear in the world, right?
No doubt.
So I'd like to get you on that program, Melinda, and maybe you can help attract others to that as well.
Of course,
I'll let you know.
Thank you.
So many of you have met Julie Taylor and Chase Eskelson from the Bridge School, thebridgeschool.net. They're going to be on several shows coming up.
Nice.
And they're going to be talking about, amongst other things, they're going to be talking about, I'm trying to use the right phrase, it's online learning, but from a business and technical point of view, currently their specialty is K through 12, and they do it quite well. But the future is this kind of thing for business people in business at all levels, to learn how to use Zoom to educate themselves for not only public speaking, but dealing with strangers, dealing with conflict, all kinds of things. And so we're going to be developing a series of broadcasts based on these nebulous topics. And so more on that later.
Nebulous but needed. And hey, if you can teach K through 12, you can teach anybody.
Tell them that. Okay, Melinda Stallings, thank you very much. Roberto Chang, thank you. Bobby, nice to meet you. Mark, we'll see you soon. Christy, good luck in your search. And stay dry in New Orleans, Baton Rouge.
Exactly.
Okay, this is Ed in San Diego and Big Bear Lake, California, 7,000 feet. Thankfully, no fires.
Thankfully.
Thanks for being on our show, Melinda, and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye-bye.